What's up, guys? Welcome back here. One more time and one more video about fantasy football. I just finished up making a mock draft where I was number one overall pick and I took Le'Veon Bell. I got a 95 out of 100 in that mock draft according to Fantasy Pros. I was really happy with the kind of players that I picked because I think that my team was really solid. Not only in my starting lineup but even on the bench. So if you guys want to know more about my technique, just go check out the video. We'll leave the link in the underneath here, so you guys will see how I draft when I'm number one overall, what kind of strategy I use, what kind of players I'm looking for, especially in this format. So this video is gonna be different than the previous video I made. The last 3 videos I made was all about mock drafts. This time I'm gonna, as you guys can see, I have the football rankings here. Of course, I'm on fantasypros.com. I'm not gonna go over the ranking, but I'm gonna try to analyze and give you guys 5 names that can be 5 fantasy football sleepers at quarterback position, at wide receiver position, running back, and tight ends. So I'll try to give you 20 names overall. They can be fantasy football sleepers this year, and they can probably help you guys out winning your league, because you don't win your fantasy football with the number 1 overall pick, with your first round pick. You win fantasy football with the waiver wire picks, with the people that you draft in the last rounds, and so on. So always make sure to watch for sleepers at the very end, because even if you have the very last pick of fantasy football, don't just take one random guy. Try to take a guy that can give you a big upside. So let's go ahead. I'll start with the easy one. I'll start with the quarterback position because I think it's less, since there are less names there. It's gonna be probably it's gonna take me probably like a couple of minutes. So position, I'll just go for quarterback. I think that the number 1 is gonna be Aaron Rodgers, and I think the number 2 might be Tom Brady. Actually, they have Russell Wilson first, which for me, I'd rather have Tom Brady than Russell Wilson. I know that Russell Wilson he has the upside of rushing yards, but he lost Paul Richardson, he lost Jimmy Graham. The offensive line is still sketchy. I mean, the only option he has, the only good option that he has is Doug Baldwin, and even Doug Baldwin is battling with an injury. So I think Russell Wilson is gonna still perform okay, if not good, in fantasy football, but that's because of rushing yards potential. But honestly, I'd rather have Drew Brees, I'd rather have Tom Brady, I'd rather have Carson Wentz. No, I'd rather have Andrew Luck, Kirk Cousins than Russell Wilson. You guys can call me crazy, but I'm not sold with that offense. Not with Russell Wilson, but with the offense in general. So the first 10 names are pretty. I'm pretty confident with those names: Rodgers, Wilson, Brady, Newton, Watson, Brees, Wentz, Kirk Cousins, Andrew Luck, Matthew Stafford. I think as long as they stay healthy, I think they can be all QB1. I really like the guys I really like this year are Aaron Rodgers. I think that after the fact that he got hurt last year, he's gonna come back pretty strong this year. Cam Newton, I think Cam Newton can have a solid year. I'm sold on Deshaun Watson. I think what he did in his rookie year, for the games they played, he can really replicate those games even this year and even improve even more as long as he stays healthy. Carson Wentz can be risky because, I mean, we don't even know if he's going to start the first game. It can be Nick Foles. And also, Alshon Jeffrey is going to be in the PUP list, so he's going to miss the first 6 games. Nelson Aguilar also is hurt. So the first option is going to be Mike Wallace. Don't you have Mike Wallace, Zach Ertz, and then Nelson Aguilar once he comes back. And then they have Ajay, then they have Corey Clement, Darren Sproles. So I'm not too sold on the Eagles offense this year. I think I'd rather draft the Eagles defense this year and then any other Eagle players on offense. The only guy that I'll draft is probably Zach Ertz, to be honest with you, with confidence. Then I'll draft Wentz, but there can be a risk there. I think Carson, when he did the first game as a Vikings player in the preseason, I think he's gonna just play just like that. I think he's a phenomenal player in fantasy football and also in real life. I think he can definitely throw for more than 4,000 yards, and also I think he's gonna pass for like around 30 touchdowns. So I think if he's available, I think Kirk Cousins is one of those quarterbacks that I'd rather have, that I really would like to have. Andrew Luck, I think if he's back, I think it's worth to draft him, but I would not try to spend too much for him. Matthew Stafford, I mean, he always throws for 4,000 yards, so the only negative thing that he has is that sometimes he throws more interception than touchdown. But if you play in one of those leagues where they reward the quarterback for when a quarterback pass for more than 300 yards a game, 200 yards a game, or if he scores more than 3 touchdowns a game, I think Stafford can go even higher than number 10. So other players that I will consider, 5 fantasy sleeper at the quarterback position after analyzing the first 10. Okay, so I don't like Rodgers this year. I'll try to avoid, not because he is under concussion protocol, because I don't care. It's just preseason. I think it's going to be cleared before week 1 at least. I really think that what we saw last year from Rodgers, so the difference between him playing at home and him playing on the road, I think that that's a sign that shows that this quarterback is going towards the end of his career. I think he doesn't have that many years left. He can retire in the next year or 2 years. We don't know this. I'd rather have other players than him. I really don't like to draft the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback this year. So my number 1 quarterback sleeper for the year, for me, is not a sleeper, because if you guys see my rankings at the quarterback position, I have this guy definitely in top 10. I think I have him at number 7. I think I have this guy where Carson Wentz is behind Drew Brees. I need to go check. I think I have Drew Brees, Kirk Cousins, and then this guy here. And I'm talking about Philip Rivers. I think Philip Rivers is definitely a top 10 quarterback. The Chargers offense is definitely a top 5 offense. I really think that, I mean, last year it was number 2 for passing yards, if I'm correct, or even number 1. I need to check that stats, but it was either one. The only thing that didn't work out for him in fantasy football was that he didn't pass for that many touchdowns. But I think with Mike Williams back, with all the weapons that he has, I think he may score for 30 touchdowns. So Philip Rivers for me is the number 1 option as far as quarterback to draft in the later rounds, since he is I think, what's his ADP? His average drafting position is it tells you here. He's been drafted as the 15th. That's really, I think that's late for him. The 15, that's really like, who else is going, like Garoppolo, Matt Ryan, and Jared Goff are being drafted before him. I think it's too late. I mean, like, if you can get Philip Rivers as a 15th quarterback on the board. Like, don't even think more than 2 seconds. Just draft this guy. So Philip Rivers is the number 1 option. Second option, I'm not gonna say Garoppolo because I think there is enough emphasis on him. Everybody hyped Garoppolo last year. I think everybody's gonna draft Garoppolo. I think Matt Ryan is a nice sleeper. I think he's gonna bounce back from last year. I think the Atlanta Falcons offense overall is gonna bounce back. I remember 2 years ago when Matt Ryan was MVP. That year fantasy football draft in one of my league, 12-man league, Matt Ryan was the last pick at the very end. He was the last guy to be drafted in that fantasy football draft. So this guy with his very last pick, he drafted an MVP quarterback. So I don't think he's gonna go back to that level, but I think he's gonna play way better than this year. I think many people, they're gonna pass on him because they think that Ryan is just an average quarterback. I don't think Ryan is like a top 5 quarterback or even like a top 10 quarterback, but with the weapons that he has, I think he can be like a QB1 this year. So he's my number 2 sleeper. Then I like Derek Carr. I think the Raiders offense with John Gruden this year, they're gonna bounce back. I saw the preseason. I liked the way the Marshawn Lynch played, even though he only ran for once, but he scored a touchdown, then was called back. I think Amari Cooper is gonna be really fine. I think the Jordy Nelson is gonna play at high level. I think Derek Carr. I mean, I've seen Derek Carr being undrafted in many leagues. I think like if you don't have a quarterback or you don't need a quarterback or you need a backup quarterback, you can draft Derek Carr, I think like in the very last couple of rounds. So that's my number 3 sleeper. And then as far as quarterback, I'll go with Jared Goff, even though I think like people think that he's just an average quarterback. I think he can perform as a QB1 with the offense that he plays in. And then my last pick, this is kind of a reach. This is like if you have nobody left, if you need a backup quarterback or even a starting quarterback. I think this year, you could start Tyra Taylor. I think Tyra Taylor can be a good fantasy relevant quarterback especially in deep leagues. So don't be desperate to play with Tyra Taylor. I think the Cleveland Browns, they have a solid offense this year. I think they're gonna win more games than they won the past 3 years combined. So if he's available and if you need a backup quarterback and they have no more picks left, just draft this guy. Then if he doesn't perform, you can just drop him and you can get like probably Andy Dalton is going to be available, probably Joe Flacco is going to be available, probably is going to be Black Bortles is going to be available, but I'd rather have Tyra Taylor than all those guys. So Rivers, Matt Ryan, Jared Goff, Tyra Taylor, and then I was missing one guy. What was the other guy? And Derek Carr. Those are my 5 running quarterback. Perfect for me. The best one is Rivers. Then I'll put Derek Carr. That's not just best one because I think those are the better quarterbacks. That's the best value because I think Rivers is a top 10 quarterback and is being drafted as QB 15. Great value. Derek Carr has been undrafted in many leagues. I think he can start in many leagues, especially if it's a deep league. Then I have Jared Goff, Matt Ryan, and Tyra Taylor. Now let's move on to running back. Yes, I need to speed up because I've lost too much time talking about quarterbacks. So this is going to be intense because there are so many running backs out there. So I just need to go with names that are kind of unusual, probably in the later rounds. Like if you need desperately a running back later on. So my favorite guy is Chris Carson. If you see the mock draft I just did a couple minutes ago, you guys saw that I drafted Chris Carson with lots of confidence. I think he can be the starter for the Seattle Seahawks, especially if Payne is gonna miss the first couple weeks. He is also great in the passing game, and I think he can go in the 10th, 11th round. And I think if you get a starting running back that late, I'll be happy to take that. So Chris Carson is definitely my first running back as far as sleeper running back. Then I'll put Payton Barbour. Many people that's because the coach and the team has lots of confidence in Payton Barbour. One more time, he is starting running back for a team. I think Ronald Jones is gonna start behind Payton Barbour and what's the guy? Another running back they have. I forgot his name. The guy that used to play for the Falcons. Well, you guys know what running back I'm talking about. And I think that he's gonna move on the chapter on the depth chart little by little, and maybe the starting running back later on. But I think Payton Barbour is gonna be fine for the Bucs this year as a starting running back. He doesn't have much talent, but he's overall an okay running back. So if you're desperate and you're in the 13th round and you need the bench running back that starts for the team, Payton Barbour can be fine. Then one guy that I really like, and I think he may be, this year he may not be a sleeper, I think it's Marshawn Lynch. I think Marshawn Lynch looked great this year, looked really fast. I think that people may pass on him because he sucked last year. But I really like the Oakland Raiders team this year. I think they played terrible last year offensively. And I think with the new coach, they're going to really go from year to year. They're completely going to change. Honestly, I think that what you saw from the Rams last year, after they changed head coach or the staffing coach, like if you guys remember 2 years ago with Fisher as the head coach, the Rams were the worst offense in the league. Same players, just couple of new players in offensive line, and a couple players, a couple new wide receivers. But the Rams went from the last scoring offensive team to being the number one offensive team. I don't think the Raiders going to be the number one offensive team, but I think they're going to completely improve from last year. So I think Lynch can be a sleeper. Then one more guy. Also, just to remember you guys, all my ranking, all my talk, it's all about PPR team. If I will choose a guy that will go in the late round and it's none of those guys, I'll go with Robert Kelly, and my last guy will be a real surprise for many. So I'll talk with Robert Kelly briefly. I think that he's going to be the number one running back on the depth chart for the Redskins. I don't think Samaje Perine is going to start for them, simply because Robert Kelly doesn't fumble, Perine fumbles, and I think Robert Kelly is more useful than Perine also in the passing game. I think Chris Thompson is going to be really relevant for the Redskins, but to have Robert Kelly on your bench and you draft a starting running back in the 12th round, that's pretty nice. I would love to do this. And my very last pick, and that's really if you are desperate in need of a running back for depth and there is no other running backs left on the board, you can go ahead and throw a flyer for this guy, and I'm talking about Kristen Michael. The Colts running situation is pretty weird. Marlon Mack is having an injury. timeline is not set. Then the rookie running back Hines is just a passing catch running back. He is not a 3-down running back, and they just brought in Kristen Michael, and Kristen Michael is playing the drills with the starting team, the first team. So that's a good sign for him. If he performs well in the preseason, and if he's gonna be the number one depth on the depth chart starting of the season, I mean, you have a starting running back on your bench, and you got him with your very last pick. If it doesn't work out, you just wasted a 15th round pick. Who cares? You're gonna find someone better in the waiver wire. So to recap my running back sleepers, I went with Chris Carson. I went with Marshawn Lynch. I went with Kristen Michael, Robert Kelly, and Payton Barbour. Those names sound ugly, but I'm talking about sleepers. I'm talking about running backs that are gonna start for their team, and running backs that are going late in drafts. I mean, even if you go with a 0 running back strategy at the beginning, and you have Chris Carson, Robert Kelly, and like 2 of those guys as your starting running back, you'll still be fine. It's always, I'd rather have a starting running back on my fantasy team, even though he is not that much talented, than having a talented running back that doesn't start for his team. You know what I mean? So that's pretty nice. So for 5 fantasy sleeper wide receiver, this will I really know by memory which guys to take, because I've done this multiple times already. This is probably no particular order. I like all those guys. I don't prefer one guy more than a guy. So I like DJ Moore. I really think that he's gonna fit perfectly for the Carolina offense, and I think that you can draft him probably in the 9th to the 11th round. I'm always referring to a 12-man league. I think that he can also play in the flex position in your team. I think it's going to be fine as a wide receiver 3. And if you have him on your bench, that's great. I like Mike Williams from the Chargers. I think that since they lost Hunter Henry, they really don't have a good starting 10. And the fact that Mike Williams is the biggest wide receiver they have on the roster, I think that if he stays healthy, he's going to be a red zone threat. And the Chargers are a top 5 offense in the league. I think they're going to have many opportunities to be in the end zone and to score. And I think Mike Williams may have the opportunity to score many of those touchdowns in the end zone. I think he's the 52 wide receiver. That's his average draft position. If you need a wide receiver for your bench, I think you can jump in 1 round earlier than what Mike Williams is projected to go. I really like Mike Williams this year. Then one other guy that can be a sleeper this year, it's John Brown for the Baltimore Ravens. Listen, John Brown has lots of talent. He is a really fast guy. Overall, his experience with the Cardinals, he was okay. The only thing is that he was hurt most of the time, but he was really fast. I remember 2 years ago, he was a wide receiver too. I think that the Baltimore Ravens, they don't have that many options offensively. I mean, Michael Crabtree is going to be fine. Then they have Alex Collins, Buck Allen in the back. They have a rookie tight end. So I think that John Brown, since he's the speedy wide receiver, I think they're going to use him a lot. I really think the Baltimore Ravens, they're going to be much more effective this year offensively than the past year. So I think you'll be fine drafting John Brown this year. So then I have 2 more names to do before moving on to tight ends. And then I'll do Dede Westbrook. I love Dede Westbrook already. I really love Dede Westbrook. I really think that he can be the number one wide receiver for the Jaguars at the end of the year, the guy with the most receiving yards. I'd rather draft Dede Westbrook or even Kenon Cole than Marcus Lee. I really think that will give you probably pretty much the same numbers, but you have to pay much more for Marcus Lee than Dede Westbrook. Like, Dede Westbrook is going towards the end of the draft. I'll be confident drafting him in many of my leagues. And then one last guy. I was debating between two guys, but I think I pass it on. I think I pass on this guy. Yes, I see. I see the Westbrook. I'll go with the rookie for the Cowboys, Michael Gallup. I think that Breit is gonna try to force the ball to him more than he'll try to force the ball to Allen Hurns or Cole Beasley. Even though I'll be happy to draft Cole Beasley towards the end, I think he'll still be fine in fantasy football. Even though this is not kind of a sleeper, because many people are bumping up this guy, but I think he's a sleeper because they're drafting him as a wide receiver 3 as a flex, but I think he may even perform as a wide receiver 2 this year. If I have the opportunity, I even pay more than I should do for Gallup. So to recap, my 5 wide receiver sleeper this year, they're gonna be DJ Moore, they're gonna be Dede Westbrook, Chris Gallup, John Brown, and Mike Williams. And finally, let's move on tight ends. Tight ends is it's hard to do sleeper tight ends because they're not that many tight ends. I'll try to go really quick on those. So we're looking about tight ends that are looking at as tight ends that you can start every single week, and they can produce, like, they can be a top 10 tight end most of the weeks this year. So I'm looking at a guy like Reed and other guys. So I think that I will draft this year Njoku. I think that Tyra Taylor, whenever he plays, that hand is gonna perform pretty well. And what we saw from Njoku this preseason, I think he was a first round pick. I really think it can be a solid hand in the NFL. And with Tyra Taylor on the center, he is gonna have an increase in opportunities for him to score. So I think he is a wonderful hand to have on your team this year. One other guy that I like to draft this year, and this is tough because the more I look at the names, the more I'll be like, no, it's too. I can find those guys in the waiver wire, but sometimes you have to spend a pick on a guy that you potentially have on a waiver wire because you don't know if someone else is gonna look into him before you in the waiver wire. So Njoku, I like the rookie for the Baltimore Ravens. What's his name? Hurst. I think that the Ravens, whenever Joe Flacco plays, and it's been the quarterback for more than 10 years, data ends for the Baltimore Ravens, they've performed well. I'm just thinking about Dennis Pitta. I'm thinking about Benjamin Watson when he was healthy. So I'll be confident in drafting Hurst if I'm desperate for a tight end. I like George Kittle this year, even though he's kind of hurt. I think he can be a solid option at the tight end position. I like. I personally like Cameron Breit. I think that for the past 2 years, Cameron Breit has had wonderful numbers. I don't know why people are letting Cameron Breit go as an undrafted tight end. But I think that you can start him confidently, even though O.J. Howard is going to be there. So I have Njoku, I have George Kittle, I have Breit, and have Hurst. One last guy for the tight end position. No, it's too. That's too deep to look at. I'll be honest with you guys. If he's available and nobody is gonna draft him, I'll go with Tyler Eifert. I think that Tyler Eifert, I know that he gets hurt a lot, but it's a really risky play. But I think that if Tyler Eifert stays healthy, he's a top 10, if not top 5 tight end. I think he's still gonna get most of the red zone looks in the end zone. Many people gonna pass on him because he was hurt a lot the past 2 years. But I think though, if you already have a tight end and you need the backup tight end, I'll draft Tyler Eifert just because the upside for this guy is so high when he's on the field that it's hard. It's hard to pass on this guy, especially at the end of the draft. So to recap and to conclude the video, my sleepers tight ends are George Kittle, Tyler Eifert, Cameron Breit, Njoku, and Hurst for the Baltimore Ravens. I know this video was kind of long for you guys, but I wanted to do this video for a long time just to give you an idea of all kind of players I think they're going to have a breakout season on fantasy football level. Some guys that you want to target towards the end of the rounds. So hopefully guys like this video. Leave a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I'll probably do one more mock draft, I'll probably do my full rankings, my very first rankings. I'll probably do my first two rounds mock draft. So I'll see you guys soon. Take care.